Peripheral nerve injury is so important topic that you must have clear concept before going for any exam, both for undergraduate and both for postgraduate. Now next few minutes I will try my best to clarify all the doubts and all I will try to give your basic concept that by which you can encounter any type of problem. Now peripheral nervous system, as you all know, it's come from the central nervous system extension. This is spinal cord, and from the anterior horn cell the lower motor neuron start, and this formed by dorsal root ganglion, ventral root ganglion. Then it has some pseudoganglion. Then it will also help to form sympathetic chain. Then it will give a small tweak to meningeal area. Then both rami fuse and it forms a nerve. Now this peripheral nerve has been cross sectioned, and if we go for examination properly we can see some vessel. This is called vasa nervosum. The most common question asked from this area, which is the blood supply of sciatic nerve. The name of this vessel is nervi sciatica ischiadici. It is a branch of inferior gluteal artery. Again, the vaso nervosum, like median nerve, the nerve, the artery supply the median nerve is anterior interosseous artery. So each and every big peripheral nerve must supply by this vessel, and that is the explanation that during during amputation, when we have have to give a cross section, or you have to cut the nerve, you must be sharp cut to prevent the stum neuroma. Along with we have to bind ligate it with a ligature to prevent hematoma also. Now this nerve is circumferenced by epineurium. Then within the epineurium there will be multiple perineurium over nerve sheath. Then within the perineurium there will be multiple fascicles which is covered by endoneurium. So E P E A P, okay, epineurium, perineurium, endoneurium. Endo means bhetore, inner. Now within this endoneurium there are multiple fascicles. Along the multiple fascicles there will be the axons, and this is called Schwann cell. That helps just like a roll. It will helps to do myelination around this sheath, and it will act as a main transmitting insulator effect. So this is the normal anatomy. Now if we go for in details before the injury, we have to know the basic physiology first. Seddon has classified this nerve injury into three categories: neuropraxia due to compression. For this, it can cause the local myelin damage with the nerve sheath still intact. Nerve will still intact, but only local myelin damage. Now axonotemesis is due to crush, and it is due in that case axon will be lost. Endoneurium, perineurium, epineurium remain intact. Loss of continuity of the axon with Wallerian degeneration due to disruption of the axoplasmic flow. Now it also again classified in three subgroup 2, 3 and 4, where they shown that the severity of that crush injury. If it more severe, then it also involve the endoneurium injury, or if it is more involved, then it can cause endoneurium along with perineurium injury, but intact the epineurium. Epineurium means this will be intact, but this and perineurium will be damaged for the severe case of crush injury. Now last but not the least is neurotemesis. Neurotemesis means total transection of the nerve. Is transection of the nerve. So complete physiological disruption of the entire nerve trunk. Early surgical intervention is necessary, and prognosis is very bad. See, most common type of nerve injury is neuropraxia due to compression in our post-operative period, or any type of compression, prolonged anesthesia, prolonged bad posture, and even Saturday night palsy, if maximum tourniquet palsy, or are the example of neuropraxia and due to compression. But this crash injury and this neurotrauma is very rare. Sometimes due to accident or এমনি মানে হচ্ছে operative injury there can be a total transection of the nerve. But what I want to say, the if there is neurotemesis, then chance of Wallendian degeneration and regeneration will be very difficult or may not be happen. In that case, the prognosis is guarded, means bad prognosis. But neuropraxia, the prognosis is very good. Okay. Now, some one to two things regarding the nerve regeneration. When there is an injury or insult, there will be degeneration of the myelination by macrophage. Now these debris will be clear up by macrophage along with the this myelin sheath. Now the Schwann cell helps for the remyelination. This is called this degeneration is called Wallendian degeneration. Then proliferation of Schwann cell helps and the axon start penetrating the band of Bungar, and it helps to reproduce the nerve, and it helps to reconnect the nerve end plate, and it will help to regenerate the atrophic muscle. When the neuromuscular junction will shut down, then the muscle automatically get wasted, and this atrophy is the term which is seen in the microscope, but clinically we will see wasting. Okay. In our exam never told, sir, this muscle is atrophied. Atrophied is a microscopic term. You have to utter wasting. Now due to and this procedure may need maximum 3 months. So this is the physiological explanation that we should wait for complete or partial regeneration of any long peripheral nerve injury, where we are quite confident that we did not cut that nerve, or there is no neurotemesis. If we are thinking, suppose there is a radial nerve injury, or there is a tourniquet palsy, or there is a due to compression there is a or traction there is injury, we must wait at least 3 months. That 3 weeks to 3 months is needed. Otherwise we cannot give the proper time to regenerate that nerve. Okay, so this is the explanation why 3 months, because this procedure needs this. Then after successful regeneration, the muscle again regenerate and take it on structure. Now if there will be a gap, so disorganized axon will start, that can cause stump neuroma. Okay, and due to unsuccessful nerve regeneration, the muscle get atrophied for the long term as a long term effect. And there is a term is called motor march. Motor march mean, suppose this nerve will supply this muscle, but this nerve fiber will supply the distal of this muscle. Now when this nerve will get regenerate, then first this muscle will get activate, then this muscle will get activate, then this muscle get activate. So the muscle activation or reactivation will act like a jumping. So this is called motor march. It found in special type of Wallendian degeneration. And during any type of nerve injury regeneration, due to this sprouting nerve axon sheath, the sensitivity of this area will be increased. So that is also the explanation of Tinel sign. Okay. Now I again just give a schematic diagram. This is neurotemesis. All the level is cut, and this is the axonotemesis. This this will be maintained, and when we see the neuropraxia, this is due to only conduction block. Okay. Now that sit-down classification has been again reclassified by Sunderland. I already told you, if possible, you have to utter both of them, and you just see this structure for remembering of this, or memorizing this story. Now what we have to go for read for going an exam. First of all, we have to read wrist drop, foot drop, winging of scapula, claw hand, ephraim deformity, pointing index, and the deformity will be discussed one by one. Now radial nerve injury is the most common, and this course of the radial nerve is coming from the posterior cord. Then it helps to give along with this the axillary nerve. Then radial nerve come in contact with the proximal part of the humerus, and where in axilla it will give a twig to the lateral head of the triceps. Then it comes into the spiral groove, and here he also give a twig to the lateral head of the triceps. Again, when it cross the spiral groove, then it gives a small branch to the sensor area, and also to the medial head of the triceps. Okay. Now in the spiral groove, when it just exit, then it also give a twig to the lateral head. So lateral head will supplied by two times. One is from axilla, and another is from the spiral groove. Now after this, and during this during this course, it will accompanied by arteria profunda brachii, and this will turn into the anterior compartment through the lateral interosseous membrane, where it, after coming this anterior compartment, it will give branches to the brachiodalis, extensor carpi dalis longus, and anconeus, and a deep nerve to the elbow joint. Now this area and this area are most prone for any surgical damage, along with some neuropraxia. Now after crossing the elbow, that will pierce the supinator muscle, and before piercing the supinator muscle, that will give a long superficial radial cutaneous nerve, and also give a dorsal antecubital cutaneous nerve, and this cutaneous nerve will extend just below the brachiodalis medial border, and will extend up to the anatomical sum blocks. Then it gives the autonomous zone of the radial nerve is called first and second, within the first and second wave space. This is called autonomous zone of the radial nerve, because that area always and must be supplied by radial nerve. Okay. So this is then this after piercing this supinator, it goes in the posterior compartment, and it will supply all the extensor group of muscle, beginning from the extensor carpi dalis brevis to commonis, proprionis, ulnaris, supinator, along with the extensor pollicis brevis, extensor pollicis longus, extensor pollicis indicis, all these group. Now during operation of the posterior through posterior approach or proximal radius dissection, there is chance of traction, maximum chance of traction of this nerve, or it can be cut by untrained surgeon. As a result, there will be the policy. Now you have to classify all the policy very see, if this injury occur in this area or spiral groove area, already one branch is supplied to the triceps, so this is called very high injury. In very high injury, and only triceps will be spared. Okay. Now for high injury, the biceps and the brachiolaris will be spared. and for lower injury this is called PIN palsy. In this level, this metacarpophalangeal joint extension will be hampered. So three type of injury: very high, high, and low. Now posterior interosseous nerve in palsy, there will be unable to extend the finger. Wrist drop will not be seen in case of very low or PIN palsy. But radial nerve palsy most commonly affected deformity is wrist drop due to inability to extend this wrist joint, and due to fracture or any manipulation, if the nerve is entrangled or entrapped in the fracture site, this is called Halston-Lewis palsy, and this is the indication for acute exploration and the nerve dissection. But most commonly get radial nerve palsy is tunicate palsy or Sutherland palsy or Honeyman palsy or Crutch palsy due to compression of the radial nerve in the spinal groove, and it is one type of neuropaxia. It can degenerate within few weeks. Now treatment: when maximum radial nerve fault came with the problem of wrist drop and inability to extend the metacarpophalangeal joint, so we can if we are quite sure that there is no transection of the nerve, then we can assure the patient that that will recover within 3 months. Now we have to go for EMG NCB, which can stamp the diagnosis, and also we give a dynamic extensor splint. What do you mean by dynamic extensor splint? This extensor splint helps to restore the normal extension position of the wrist and finger. Now patient can do flexion of the all the finger, along with it can do flexion of the wrist, which helps to prevent the overstretching or over lengthening of the innervated muscle, and it also helps to maintain the mobility of the all the small joint along with the wrist. We because this recovery takes around maximum 3 months. So if this wrist drop and all the wrist small joint will remain immobilization, then there will be stiffness along with the over lengthening of the tendon muscle junction, and it will act as a failed hand, and wrist deformity will occur. So to prevent that, we used to give dynamic Coca splint, and this type of splint helps, and you have to advise the patient and told them to do regular flexion and extension. Now if there is a complete cut in the spiral groove, or we are get sure that there will be no chance of regeneration, then we can go for surgical repair. I will discuss the repair technique in the last. But for radial nerve injury, as it is the most common encounter injury, if we get that we cannot get recover from this nerve injury, or after 3 months of waiting of conservative management, we can get that patient is suffering from persistent renal palsy, then the radial nerve is so important that for any normal function, the extensor group of the muscle have to work. So what can I what will be the next management line? It is tendon transfer. It will allow the finger and thumb extension and do some normal work. Now some word regarding the tendon transfer. There is a principle for tendon transfer: straight line of pull, expandable donor, adequate strength, correction of the contracture, one tendon one function, amplitude of the motion, synergism, and tissue equilibrium. Now I just clear one by one. Straight line pull, otherwise if we don't put this grafted tendon in a straight line, that function will not be adequate or not appreciable after that operation. Second, we have to take a good amount of tendon length that we can extend the repair as we needed, as per needed intraoperative time. Now, regarding the strength during this tendon transfer, keep in mind the muscle power which has 5 grade, it will must decrease at least 1 grade. So for anti-gravity we will need at least 3 grade 3 power, MRC getting 3. Now if the muscle power already 4, then after this transfer it will come as 3. So you must see that before transfer the donor muscle power at least 5, otherwise it will be failed, and that will cause more problem to the patient. Now correction of the contracture, if this joint where it will act the joint is stiff, then what is the use of this tendon transfer? Patient can use this part, or suppose this joint is fused or there is huge contracture, then there is no use of tendon transfer. Last is one tendon one function, because if we need the extension of the thumb, we have to wrap it with only one tendon. We cannot do multiple function with one tendon transfer. Okay. Then amplitude of motion means there is a special type of vector that is acting on this tendon transfer during this suture, that will bind an adequate tension, otherwise the amplitude of this tension will be diminished. Now synergism means same group of muscle or tendon must be transferred. Last but not the least, the equilibrium, balance. Suppose you are taking graph from the flexor aspect. Now if we taking a maximum graph from flexor aspect, then there must be some replacement over there. So the cautious and judicious selection is very important for a successful tendon transfer. For postgraduate student, you have to know everything. And last but not the least, for radial nerve you have to know at least the name of the operation. This is called modified Jones transfer for radial nerve palsy, and these are the 3 tendons has been used to transfer for in case of radial nerve. For post graduation student, you have to know all the operative technique, and I make a small mnemonic. PL to EPL means pollicis longus to extensor pollicis longus. Then FCR to ADC, flexor carpi radialis will transfer to the extensor digitorum communis, and PT to ECRB. PT means pointer teres transfer to the extensor carpi radialis brevis. So please go through, and best way to remember this to make a printout and just attach it to your study room. Now median nerve. Median nerve is constitute of T1, C8, C7, C6, C5 nerve root. Then there will be no branch in the brachial plexus, only a tweak to the brachial artery, and there is no branch in the arm. When it crosses the elbow joint, then it gives branch to the pointer teres, flexor carpi radialis, palmaris longus, flexor digitorum superficialis, and also a tweak to elbow joint. And anterior interosseous nerve, flexor pollicis longus, flexor digitorum profundus, lateral half, and pronator quadratus along with the wrist joint. Now when it crossing the wrist joint, there is a small tweak to the palmar cutaneous branch, which is most commonly injured during the volar approach of plating or carpal tunnel release operation. And after entering to the hand, the first three muscle in the thenar group is supplied by the medial nerve. Then first 2 lumbicals, 1 and 2 lumbicals is supplied by medial nerve. Then it will give some palmar digital branches up to three and half, three and half mm, finger. This is the dorsal aspect and this is the ventral aspect, three and half. But in the dorsal aspect, just see this finger. This is the ring finger. See, this is the half portion, and for this ventral aspect, this is the half position. So just remember this, because that may in exam examiner try to mm, confuse you, because this is some extent different. This is the half for ventral, this is the half, whole half, but this is the half. Okay, please remember this. And for any median nerve injury, this median nerve, before going in details, I just wanted to say 2 to 3 lines. Median nerve is the most toughest nerve, and it functions the maximum muscle power for the hand, so it also called machinery nerve or labor nerve. And these nerve are most common injured during any operation during this polar aspect, and maybe during supracondylar fracture due to bony projection, that nerve can be injured. And this median, due to median nerve injury, there will be wasting of the thenar eminence. This wasting will be very obvious, because I already show you the nerve generation physiology. Due to the conduction blockage, this is the first clinical findings, that muscle wasting, not atrophy. Again I repeat. And you have to just mark up the root value also, because that will the most common question they will ask. And before entering this wrist joint, there will be a small pseudo ganglion over the median nerve, and median nerve has a small blood supply. It is come from anteroindoosseous artery, which is branch of ulnar artery. Now I again want to clarify the autonomous zone. First and second interosseous space is called radial nerve autonomous zone, but median nerve autonomous zone is middle finger pulp. Middle finger pulp is only supplied by median nerve, and little finger pulp and tip is supplied by only ulnar nerve. So these three is very important, and you have to remember. And why this concept is arise, because there is some congenital anomaly like Miller-Goodman anomaly and some anomaly which can change the nerve supply disposition, but these three cannot be changes. This is always same, so this is called autonomous zone. Okay, now when patients coming with the median nerve palsy, we will see some test like Ostner clasping test. This is called pointing index sign. Okay, and if attempt of flexion, this flexor in this index will not flex. This is called pointing index. Now if we ask the patient to extend his thumb from with full supination, and if we ask the patient to abduct actually, then and touch the pen, patient cannot. This is called pen test. Now due to weakness of the flexor pollicis longus, patient cannot flex this distal interphalangeal joint. Okay, and also patient cannot perform this OK sign. This OK sign is not possible. This configuration is solely formed by the median nerve. And there will be called F thumb deformity. What do you mean by F thumb deformity? It is due to median nerve palsy, wasting of the thenar eminence of the hand, immunity to oppose the flex, immunity to oppose or flex the thumb. This is called F thumb deformity. And on attempt of flexion of the wrist, there will be ulnar deviation because of weakness of flexor carpi radialis. Okay. Now ulnar nerve. Ulnar nerve is also very common during the lateral condyle fracture or any operation or any traction or cut injury over the wrist because of its anatomical predisposition. It's come through the the medial cord of the ulnar nerve of the brachial plexus, then is come through this arm, and it will give a small cutaneous band to the arm. Then after crossing the just below the medial epicondyle, it come through a bony tunnel, and there is a ligament called Osborne ligament. After cutting the Osborne ligament, we can mobilize this ulnar nerve that will accompanied by a small artery, and it will give 2 to 3 tweaks to the um, elbow joint. Then it will give supply to the flexor pollicis, and it also give some tweak to the wrist joint, and through when it come into this or traverse through the wrist joint flexor compartment, flexor retinaculum, there is a tunnel is called Guinon canal, where it is accompanied with the artery, and after entering to the hand, it will give a deep branch and superficial branch. The superficial branch will give the nerve supply of the thenar eminence, and hypothenar eminence, and the deep branch will give the nerve supply of the adductor pollicis. Adductor pollicis take horseshoe shaped origin from this metacarpal bone ventral aspect, and also give nerve supply to the all dorsal and palmar interossei. This is the dorsal and palmar interossei muscle. That is a bipyramidal muscle taking origin of the medial ridge of the all the metacarpal, and it will helps to form dorsal digital expansion along with the lumbricals and extensor digitorum tendon, and also it helps in the flexor tendon to make FDS spiral. FDS spiral is special type of tendon disposition which helps for our proper finger flexion and extension. I will discuss this later. Now ulnar nerve used to give supply to the very small, maximum supply is very small muscle of the hand, except a big supply to the flexor arpi ulnaris. Otherwise it will maximum supply over the small muscle of the hand. This is called intrinsic muscle of the hand. I will discuss it within 2 to 3 minutes. But due to ulnar nerve damage, we can see the wasting of the flexor arpi ulnaris along with clawing. This is called partial clawing. Medial 2 is called partial clawing. I just want to tell you again, in this medial nerve there is also clawing. This is called medial nerve clawing. But if medial nerve ulnar nerve both is affected, then it is called complete clawing. But due to ulnar nerve injury, there will be partial clawing. Okay, and there will be hyposthesia over this autonomous zone, and there will be wasting of the hypothenar eminence. Now due to weakness of the deep and also in inspection, there will be Wartenberg sign. Wartenberg sign means due to unopposed action of the extensor digiti minimi, there will be abduction and extension of the fifth finger. This is called Wartenberg sign, and this is called format sign or book test. If we pull this book when patient is holding, if there is ulnar nerve injury due to weakness of the adductor pollicis, patient will try to hold this by flexing this distal interphalangeal joint, by flexing this flexor pollicis. So that affected part will be deformed. This is called book test or Forman sign. Now due to interosseous wasting or interosseous muscle weakness, there will be the weakness of the attraction of the finger. This is classically demonstrated by card test. We will put a card within these two finger, we will try to pull it, patient cannot hold this is called card test. And last but not the least called yoga test, or pad or dab test. Means this is the test to know the strength of the interosseous muscles. Now, due to ulnar nerve injury, there will be clawing. Now, if higher injury is occur, means not around the wrist joint, then the clawing will be less. But if the injuries occur close to the this wrist or gynoncalion, then this clawing will be exaggerated. So this is called ulnar paradox. Higher lesion, less clawing. Lower lesion, maximum clawing. Why? Due to over taking upper hand of the flexor group of tendon, long tendon, which is spear in this lower nerve injury. If there is lower nerve injury, the flexor tendon will take the upper hand, so clawing will be increases. So just mind it, which is ulnar paradox. Now 1 to 3 things regarding the lumbricals. First 1 and 2 lumbricals supplied by medial nerve, and third and fourth is supplied by the ulnar nerve. This lumbricals is also called as a rider muscle. Small restricted movement of the finger is helped by lumbricals. Now this lumbrical and dorsal interossei with this extensor group of tendon is form a dorsal lateral expansion. And keep in mind the biomechanics of this area. When this this interossei and lumbricals form this, it will go just ventral to the fulcrum of the metacarpophalangeal joint, and it extend up to the dorsal portion, and it make a hood, and it make a dorsal lateral expansion. This dorsal lateral expansion will help for extension of this interphalangeal joint. So when it will act, that will cause extension of the interphalangeal joint and flexion of the metacarpophalangeal joint. Due to this abnormal predisposition of this hood make or dorsal lateral expansion. So keep in mind, this is the normal. Now you can understand why there will be clawing or intrinsic pulsion. If all the nerve supply to the small muscle is remain intact, then patient can easily do that. But if not possible, then patient cannot do that. That is called intrinsic minor. So now just to give a small revision, that for ulnar nerve injury there will be claw hand, namely to extend the finger at the interphalangeal joint and result for permanent flexion is called clawing. And for medial nerve especially, we can see the F thumb deformity and immunity to oppose the finger. This is the pathognomonic for medial nerve. And for radial nerve, pathognomonic is wrist drop. Okay, wrist drop cannot occur for all the ulnar nerve and medial nerve. It is this pathognomonic sign for each and every different type of nerve injury in the hand. Now 2 to 3 things for your knowledge purpose. If there is any injury to this flexor group of tendon, then due to abnormal position or abnormal action of this dorsal lateral expansion and the interosseous or intrinsic muscle, on attempt of flexion, that that finger will extend, because for flexion this dorsal lateral expansion will act, and it will do the flexion of the MCP joint and extension of the interphalangeal joint. So on attempt of flexion, that will extend. So that is called lumbrical plus finger. Okay, then the treatment is to repair this. Now there is also called quadrigia effect. It's just like the Rath of Mahabharata, that flexor digitorum pollicis tendon will be advanced too distally and it will give horse sleep. Now if we go for any flexion of any finger, that can cause some extent flexion of the other finger also. So this is all type of synergistic effect. It's called quadriga effect. Now, due to axillary nerve injury, there will be anesthesia over this lateral aspect of this shoulder, and it can cause the injury to the deltoid muscle, and due to deltoid muscle wasting, there will be some inability to extend or abduct this shoulder beyond some position. And when this axillary nerve is come through this quadrangular space, and it will already give branch to the teres minor along with the deltoid muscle. Now, during operation, if we injure the axillary nerve, generally operation will approach to the anterior aspect, but the deltoid muscle has been supplied from the posterior aspect by axillary nerve. So if we injure in the anterior aspect, there will be no harm to the deltoid muscle. This is a misconception that during operation this is hampered. Maybe anterior there is a artery is called circumflex humerus artery through the surgical neck of the humerus, that can be injured. But if we injure in the injure axillary nerve from anterior aspect, there will be no harm to the deltoid function, but there will be a anesthesia over this area. Is called shoulder badge regime anesthesia also. Now, for lower limb, the sciatic nerve come from the sacral plexus or lumbar plexus is very important. And during the, if we see the anatomy, this is called piriformis muscle. The sciatic nerve coming through the greater sciatic notch, when it comes just exit the true pelvic or pelvic inlet, you go to the posterior aspect, then that will just go below the piriformis muscle. Now, sometime and this nerve is will traverse this area, and in the junction of the lower 1/3 and upper 2/3 of the thigh, it will give the branch of the common peroneal nerve, and one will continue as a tibial nerve. Now, sometimes due to defect or anatomical anomaly or congenital anomaly of the sciatic nerve, the two branches of sciatic nerve can be divided at the sacral plexus even, and in that case the peroneal component will pierces this piriform muscle, and it will supply this. So during dissection, you have to take care of this type of anomaly, and it also can cause some compartment or compression sign. Now, during prosthesis, we used to go to the posterior approach, or any operation around the posterior aspect of the hip, like acetabular fracture operation, like hip replacement, like proximal proximal femur fracture operation. If we go to posterior aspect, then the chance of sciatic nerve traction injury is maximum. So take care of the sciatic nerve. How? One tips is, for each and every nerve, God has gifted some special yellow type fat layer just around the any big nerve. When you will see abnormal fat, do not explode this, because that there will be must accompany any nerve. In deep fat will be seen in the superficial level, it's okay, but when we are dissecting muscle or in deeper structure, if we will see any fat, then we have to be very cautious. And one dictum has been tell that if we see the sciatic nerve, then it already damaged. That means do not explore this deeper abnormal fat that can hamper or that can give traction over this nerve. Okay. Now, due to posterior dislocation, there is rare chance there is chance of the sciatic nerve stretching, and that is can called foot drop. Even due to acidobulum fracture, posterior fracture, floor fracture or center dislocation, this fracture fragment can impinge this sciatic nerve course. So there is a rare possibility for sciatic nerve injury. So this is urgent. This is an emergency, and it needs urgent operative intervention. You have to get the you have to refix it, and you have to dissect this nerve from this fracture fragment. And after the division, the peroneal nerve is the most common nerve in the leg, which is most commonly encountered by our orthopedic surgeon, and most common chances of palsy due to traction or compression. And just one to two anatomy, special anatomy for this. During this division of common peroneal nerve, it will just come around anterior anterior aspect, just wrap around the neck of the fibula, and in this and it will give a small recurrent articular branch to the knee joint. Then it will give anterior branch to the anterior tibialis anterior, extensor digitum longus, extensor hallucis longus, and fibularis muscle. Now, one is superficial branch that will helps to give the peroneus longus, peroneus brevis, and also it helps to give sensory branches to the superficial area of the dorsum of the foot. And but this lateral aspect of the foot is supplied by this sural nerve that is come from that tibial component from the posterior aspect. Now, all the muscles of the anterolateral aspect is supplied by this peroneal nerve. Now, all the root just wrap around the neck. So if there is any insult around the neck, then whole the anterolateral compartment can be affected. Okay, so most common cause is fracture impingement, second the tumor extension, or any surgical technique done around this neck, it can hamper this nerve. Okay, now due to this nerve there will be chance of foot drop. One if this is high, that can be cause the injury the above the head of fibula. I already discussed it, like if there is injury around the hip and this area. If it is lower, then it also seems to be affected the superficial peroneal nerve. So now the treatment of foot drop is, first you have to give the foot drop splint. It is static, no because if we don't put this, then the foot will go into equinus contracture, and the flexor, due to upper hand of the flexor tendon, the flexor contracture of the toe occur. But when there will be no hope of this recovery, then we can go for tendon transfer operation. Okay, now 2 to 3 things regarding the diagnosis of this peripheral nerve injury. EMG and NCB, or nerve conduction study, electromyography, that can diagnose a group of disease: peripheral neuropathy, diabetes mellitus, and entrapment neuropathy, reticulopathy, Guillain-Barré syndrome or demyelinating disease, motor neuron disease, then inflammatory myositis, polymyositis, dermatomyositis, neuromuscular junction disorder like myasthenia gravis, and also it helps for study the facial nerve palsy like Bell's palsy or trigeminal nerve palsy, or exclude the blepharospasm. So it have a immense diagnostic variation and it will helps to diagnose all type of nerve injury. In case of hand, there is a chance of carpal tunnel syndrome. So if we read the nerve contraction delay or lag effect, which helps for diagnosis of special type of disease. Along with there are some 2 to 3 waves. Among them, F wave is very important, which helps for diagnosing the demyelinating disease. And in details, if you go, then you can see EMG is highly sensitive indicator for early nerve injury, and it will detect dynamic and functional injury that can be mixed by MRI, and it will provide information regarding the chronicity of the nerve injury, and it will also helps for determining the prognosis of this nerve injury, and the exact site of the nerve injury, and clarify the clinical scenario when one disorder can mimic will with another, and identify and the combined multi-site injury, avoid misdiagnosis, identify more global neuromuscular injury than the focal onset, and provide a longitudinal data for muscle charting, and it will also act as a tool for know the response of the physiotherapy or the treatment. And but all the results may be biased, or it will depend on the reliability of the laboratory technician and full participation of the patient. Otherwise, that will be no use. Now, one special topic is called spinal shock. It is most commonly it occur after any sudden cervical spine injury. It can also associate with vasogenic shock, occurs when blood flow to the spinal column is affected by injury. The blood vessel dilated or open wide, and the blood pressure will fall. And it can characterize with bradycardia, slowing of the heart rate, and cardiac output will be very low, hypovolemia, and that patient must be diagnosed first, and you have to put a hard cervical collar or top heel cervical collar, and you have to treat this patient as all the cervical bone injury occurs. In that case, if we can see the nerve palsy over the or quadriparesis, first we have to exclude if there is any respiratory distress is not. If there is respiratory distress, then we have to think about the um, medulla injury. Then we have to go for positive pressure ventilation also. But if there is no respiratory distress and only feature of this type of shock, then it can be diagnosed as a spinal shock. Now, uh, if there is associated with bone injury, spinal shock is not associated with the bone injury. But I just want to clarify one special point regarding the cervical spine injury. If there is any cervical spine injury or any lumbar spine injury, that can cause a neurological defect, particularly there will be the nerve palsy, or there is which complete paraparesis or complete paraplegia, and MRI you can see the nerve compression. Then there will be, this is primary impact, and due to this primary impact, due to the blood jeopardization, blood supply and compression of this nerve root, that can damage and it can cause cytopathic effect and due to edema and the damage of the organelle. So it is called secondary effect of the nerve injury. To prevent this edema and secondary effect, we can do an methyl prednisolone therapy that will help for further secondary damage. And as per NACIS protocol, and this is the recent is NACIS 3 protocol, we have to give 40 milligram per kg body weight stat. Then we have to continue up to 24 hours or 48 hours, 5.4 milligram per kg body weight in dissolve in NS, but this will be a loading dose. If patient come within 6 hours, then you have to continue this for 24 hours. If patient come more than 6 hours but less than 10 hours, then you can continue up to 48 hours. But if patient come after 12 hours, then there is no use of this methylprednisolone. Okay, so golden time is 6 hours. Okay, but in spinal shock there will be no nerve palsy actually. Special nerve palsy will not occur. Patient will go into the neurogenic shock. In that case, this is a immediate transient response to the injury which reflects activity below the level of the injury temporary ceases. A period of flaccid paralysis and complete loss of all reflex below the trauma. And this is the loss of systemic, sympathetic, vasomotor tone, and it can cause vasodilation and hypotension. This is the explanation of this hypotension. And it can cause areflexia, so you cannot test any nerve then. But it is temporary, that will be subsided within 24 to 48 hours maximum. But how we assess the recovery? We can assess the bulbocavernosus reflex. This is the most common, most important, most demonstrable reflex for reassessing or to know the recovery of this spinal shock. Is if we put a finger or if we do any uh, sensation over the anal sphincter, it can cause a reflex that this anal sphincter will contracted. Or if we do traction of the catheter, or we squeeze the glans penis, or if we squeeze the mons pubis in case of female, or give the traction of the Foley's catheter, then this anal sphincter will contract. So if this reflex arc again come in normal action, then we can assess that patient come back from the spinal shock. Okay, in this meantime you have to just give supportive treatment and heart vehicle collar and do a MRI. In that time, if we see nerve injury, then we go for prednisolone or that. If there is no nerve injury and in MRI, then do not give this. Or there is no fracture, do not give this. It can be managed conservatively. It is a normal physiological regeneration. Now, due to brachial plexus injury, there will be loss of all function of the hand. So, what we can use is called aeroplane splint. Aeroplane splint means this is the suppose this is the wing of the aeroplane. This is the splinter is called aeroplane splint, which helps to prevent further damage of the upper limb and the function. Aeroplane splint for brachial plexus injury. The brachial plexus injury has been reclassified with the Naraclass classification, and in the Naraclass grade 4 there will be Horner syndrome along with the wasting of the all nerves, and there will be root avulsion. But in case of Naraclass 1 and 2 there will be no such syndrome. But this is not so important, just know this splintage, because the result of brachial plexus injury is very bad, and prognosis is guarded, and in severe cases there is some operation of nerve transfer or any repair, but it needs high neurological training, microvascular training, and it must be treated within 6 hours in a highly specialized center. In our setup, this is very difficult to manage, so better have to know that the conservative management. That's all. Now, one compartment syndrome is called Morton's neuralgia. Due to the special neuroma occur in between the fourth and third metatarsal, it can be impinges and there will be bursting pain over this area. This is called Morton's dementia. It can be clinically diagnosed and it can be reassured by an ultrasound USG and an MRI. We can do the excision of that and patient get rid of this compression pain. And this is called winging of scapula. This is due to long thoracic nerve injury. It can be recovered within 3 months. And due to spinal accessory nerve injury, there will be wasting or decreasing of the lowering of the scapula and the rotation of the uh, neck also occur. Now the last topic is nerve repair. In the nerve repair, if just a sharp cut and there will be no tension over this end to end, and then we can go for direct end to end repair or suture. We can use 0 up to 80 proline, and there is a special type of knot in has been given, and it used to done under this microscope and a vessel loop. Otherwise you cannot perform this type of operation. And if there is any if there is any tension or after debridement there will be a small gap, at least 1 to 2 centimeter, then we have to release the nerve proximally and distally, and after mobilization we can bring both ends and we will do suturing. But the suture must be circumferentially. But if the tension is very high and the gap is more than 3 centimeter, we cannot do this suturing in high tension because it can cause more damage to the nerve. So better to relaxing this area, we have to give nerve graft. How we can give nerve graft? We can use the sural nerve. It is found in the posterior aspect of the posterolateral aspect of the thigh. We can take the graft and it will put it here like a cable. Cable means 1 2 3 4, all the cable line, and will stitch here, and again this end and this end. So this is called cable graft. That is most commonly done by the multiple graft taking from this sural nerve. And last but not the least, the result of the nerve injury is depend on the expertise of the surgeon and the center where this patient get treated, and the time duration, which is very valuable. Within 6 hours the result will be excellent. So I think I can cover every query about nerve.